Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer up there. I believe he's diagonal from me. It depends on how it's coming across on your screen, but that looks like John up there, our resident millennial. John,
This
how are you doing
guy.
tonight?
Fantastic as always. Especially better now that we're here with you guys, all of you,
And
especially the guys in the chat.
as the title might have pointed out, tonight we've got a streaming pile of shit going on tonight, right up there above me, on top of me. God, the way I love it. Right on top of me is Jay Edgar. Jay Edgar, how are you doing tonight? Good to see you.
Hell yes.
Apparently Midget B can't hear anything.
Can't hear. How could he not hear?
Yeah, I
That's
don't know.
on.
Maybe he
If
went deaf.
well, somebody else on somebody that's in the show, pull up the stream and see if you can hear it.
Audio issues. I heard it just fine a minute ago before I muted.
Yeah, this may be
Yeah, I
audio
can hear.
issues on your end, Midget B.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
can hear
just
it fine.
turned the audio back on and I could hear you.
All right, good.
Yeah.
All right, so where was I at? Oh, and after Jay Edgar on top of me, right over here on the other side of me is Nathaniel Slattery. Nate, how are you doing tonight? Good to see you. Are you having audio issues
Oh, it
now?
might
Is
be
that what I'm
Whoa.
supposed to say?
Oh, what was that?
him. Say it again.
Huh?
What?
I
Right.
didn't know what to say.
Wow.
Oh, there. Did he come back right at the end there?
Yeah, just a second.
Your audio's cutting out, buddy.
For me?
Okay,
Yeah.
there it is. We heard that.
I heard
Okay.
that.
Nice.
Help!
Wow, that's weird. Okay, yeah, you keep cutting in and out. So we'll carry on though.
If you changed anything to your audio, check what you changed because it's making.
Anything important.
We'll be like MCR. We'll carry on.
That's right.
There's too much going on. I don't know.
Carry on. Oh god.
John, you gonna sing for us? All right, great.
Yeah, I got you.
So let's see. Has anything exciting been happening in the news? Anything? Nothing? Good. Okay, good. No news tonight. No news is good news. It's fun when no news is good news, right?
I just did 2 hours of
actually-
news, so some of the stuff's been going on.
Yeah, there's been some stuff going on. Actually, we just had a.
They just said he unmuted, so it's better now. Good. I mean, I'm glad you can hear us. Glad we fixed the audio issues.
We just had another multi-killing. Where was that? Damn it,
California? No, it wasn't California. I heard about it, but I don't know anything about it yet. 'cause I've been
California, they
busy on
broke
the
one.
last. Yeah, they broke that one up.
They broke one up in California that was a potential terrorist situation.
Talking about the San Diego synagogue shooting, or was there another one that I haven't heard of yet?
I believe it was the San Diego synagogue, but again, I haven't heard anything about that yet because I've been so busy focused on the news of the last week.
Yeah, yeah, but that one, pretty sure that one was stopped by a good guy with a gun. Surprisingly.
Oh, that never happens.
Yeah, I
Oh,
know, it's crazy.
You know what? Midget B's did point something out. Rosenstein
Oh,
has.
that's right. Yeah.
But I saw the headline, but I was working, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to look into that later, and then realized later is now, and I haven't looked into it yet. So, who here has read anything about anything? Because he's resigning.
Yeah, he turned in a resignation. I don't know anything about that yet either.
Either.
Midget's got mass shooting fatigue. Wait,
Yeah, I feel you.
hold on. That could go a couple of different ways. Like, is he worn out?
Or does he have fatigue specifically to do that in?
Right? I mean, this every mass shooting is just the average day in Chicago, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's true.
Thomas, are you in Chicago or no? You're in Brazil, aren't you?
Who's that?
Well, we'll
Commissar?
have to wait for the delay for the live chat, but
Right. But yeah, see, that's what sucks. Chicago gets a really bad rap because like all that shooting and stuff happens in one neighborhood, so it's like the rest of it's fine. The rest of it's fine. I mean, I've been there a couple of times.
yeah,
Midget
it's
B
only
used
an
to live
hour
up
away
there.
from me, so I can attest that it's more than one neighborhood.
I mean, maybe.
How often do you go to Chicago, Ed, living that close to it? Does it have any pull for you at all?
Once a year is too much.
Really? Yeah, John, you like it.
I liked northern Chicago.
Do you have
North
family up
side was
there or
nice.
something that is that
No,
it?
no, my
Or-
fiance does.
Oh, gotcha.
That's right. You and I have talked about that off mic before.
Yeah, yeah.
So can
You
I
never answered the question I asked you either over that.
Which one?
Well, I'm not going to have you do it off or on mic, but if you knew
Okay.
where I was.
Oh,
'Cause
gotcha. Yeah, I didn't ask. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll get together obviously after, so I can remember where it was.
Babe.
That's right. More than one way.
So bang, Brazilian gang, bang, bang. Nice. Yeah,
Nice.
I don't like gangs. I don't like shootings. Those are not fun. But they did bust
No.
one up in California. I guess they found some good stuff there, so that's fun. At least somebody's doing some work. Preventing
I hear
harm.
gang bangs are kind of fun.
Gang bangs can be fun.
They
Never
are,
participated.
let's just put it this way: they're never what they're cracked up to be. There are too many variables in a gangbang. There really are.
Well, aren't you supposed to like meet up before and I don't know.
Now
What do you
it's
do before a
probably
gangbang?
different if you're giving. So
Oh no, we lost Nate.
he'll be back. He's probably trying to reset his connection because we're still not hearing him.
Michael Vegas is always someone jerking off in the corner. That's why you
Yeah.
don't have uneven numbers. Always gonna have even numbers.
Yeah, but what if there's like 100 guys? There's really there's not a lot of evening that shit out.
Well, I mean,
I mean, the floor is going to be sticky. I mean, it's just what it is.
That's true.
I asked my parents to watch this stream.
Oh, really?
No.
We're
No.
Ayed's parents. Ayed's
Wait,
parents.
hold it. In our defense, I believe I know where the topic sprung forth from.
It's true.
I think I know who took it there. Mom, Dad, it wasn't us.
That's fair.
Please speak to your son
You're gonna
at
get
the
a
next
stern talking
available
to.
holiday gathering. I love
Yeah,
it.
who are these people you're hanging out with? I don't like them.
Look at the influence they've had on you.
Right. So, Nate, how's your audio issues going? Can you hear us? Yeah, we still can't hear you. Sorry, man.
I don't know enough sign language to communicate back with you.
Yeah,
I know
me either.
this.
Yeah.
He turns out. All right,
So,
everybody, let's. We want to be
let's-
like Nate. Be like
He got a little
John.
bit
You went the
sideways.
wrong way. You went the wrong way, John.
Well, on my screen, that's where he is.
I mean, if we do this right, we can make a
Oh,
swastika.
I got a voice.
If we do, wait.
I disavow.
Is that any
Yeah,
better?
but we're all looking
Yes.
at different screens, so
Yeah, that is better.
You can hear me? Okay.
Kind
yeah.
of.
You're
Like
quiet,
now?
but I have audio.
It depends. What does the barrel you're talking in look
Okay.
like?
And what
There
does
we
the
go.
fox say?
Oh God, that song.
It's dark. It's brown.
It's always brown on shooting.
Is there
shit.
scotch in it?
Did
Oh,
the-
we
Really
can't
like to
hear
see
you
a
again.
friend. Only a small amount.
Only a small
Huh?
amount. I was saying you cut out again, but that's all right. So Ed, you wanted to talk about cars and such, or cars,
now,
or what is it? Cars?
Cars.
Cars?
Well,
Cars? No, I mean, how would you say it though? From up there,
cars.
Kaz.
cars. That's what it is. Yeah, I said
And I don't
cars
even
like
have
a
that. That's the
Canadian.
problem.
If you're,
I said it like a Canadian.
well, it's
Yeah.
like ordering. You're looking for the right kind of pants. You get the khakis. Get the
Right.
khakis. Look over there on the counter. Get my khakis.
Yeah.
But now to reference back, this
I was thinking Boston.
this came about because of
Oh, cool.
conversation
Bear,
we
what's
had.
up?
We were talking about the article that was out about the hacking the GPSs, this, that, and the other, and Ed said
Mm-hmm.
that he knows cars. He invented cars, so he knows more about
Yes,
this.
I'm knocking Canadians cold as ice bear.
No way.
It's like the only amount of
Remember-
prejudice that's allowed in America. It's Canadians.
Dude, man, those maple gangs will come down here and they will hunt you down. I'm telling you. But anyway,
but at least they'll say sorry while they're murdering you.
right?
So
Sorry.
sorry.
Come on.
It might just be that the technology I have can't handle 4 people if I'm cutting in out.
That's what she said.
I don't remember her saying that.
So, Ed, can
What's
you give us a little education on how long you think it's been possible for people to hack vehicles as it stands, and how much of a threat you believe this actually could be when it comes to vehicles?
Well, when did OnStar come out? 1997, I think, was the first model year that GM was putting that onto there. From that moment, if you had the right internet connection, because essentially there was a Wi-Fi connection into the vehicle to do a satellite uplink with the OnStar center, and they could tap a button on a screen and lock and unlock your doors.
And that was the built-in system, right?
Yeah, that was built into not right away when it started out. It wasn't every single GM car and truck that rolled out the market, but it was an option that you could buy for extra.
Now, were there actually we were at the point we had computer chips on the cars themselves, right, for diagnostic purposes, right?
Oh yeah, that's been going on since 1980.
Now, when the OnStars were added to the vehicles, were those tied into that chip or communicating with that chip at all?
The first model of OnStar, no, was not connected to the diagnostic port or any of the engine onboard diagnostics at the time. Mostly that was onto the courtesy and the body control parts of the car. Your radio, because they could talk to you through your radio. The whole thing was built in through your entertainment system and your radio, so it was connected to that. They could take over the radio to talk to you, and they could lock and unlock your doors. What they started to do, they actually started to do this not long after the OnStar thing came out, was in the event that your vehicle was stolen, not only could they GPS track it because it was one of the features for OnStar, but they did add an engine shutdown under an emergency, but it was a very unsafe system because they could do it at any speed. So if you're in a high-speed chase and your engine locks up and now you're, especially in a manual transmission, if you're directly connected, you're skidding, you roll your truck, you anything like that.
And that was a hackable system too, so someone could have hacked into those OnStar systems and shut the engine off.
Well, every system out there is a hackable system. You have to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay.
I don't have to understand that.
Well,
there you go.
Well,
Hey, Nate.
would that be the same for even
Is it
just
working?
the basic diagnostic
now.
computer chips that are on the car that are just running diagnostics? Are those hackable? Could anything be done to those? Past, present, future?
Well, see, the thing, diagnostic chips and the just the regular engine controller in general is you do have to have an uplink to it. You have to be able to get into that and connect with it. That's why we have the OBD2 scanner there. That's why we can read the codes from the OBD2 scanners and sometimes not much of anything else. That's why they have the other scanners for the bigger trucks. Yes, you can get it. You have to have the link to do so. What OnStar did, especially when they had the engine shutdown feature to deter theft, they gave a port into that engine shutdown feature, and that's all it did was it was an engine shutdown at the first part. They couldn't control anything else, but they gave a port into that specific feature that anybody who could manage to get into the OnStar system, which was very, very highly encrypted and was one of the most secure servers at the time, could get in there and do the same. Theoretically, I don't know that it had ever been done, but theoretically it could be done. Because it provides that link.
What should we do about it? I said, what should we do about it? Just get like an older car?
Yeah, essentially.
Probably.
Well, that's a part of what they're doing and what they're changing into this, and that's part of what they're talking about when they talk about being able to get it. People who are writing articles talking about cars right now is because now you've got your GPS signal, which is constantly hooked up to a satellite system. That satellite goes back and runs through millions of networks throughout the country via the internet. So you the database that monitors the GPS up to the satellite, and then they can transmit data back down to the GPS system on the car, which is now tied into many more systems of the vehicle. You can read codes sometimes through your standard entertainment system. Your mechanic can go in there and look at that without necessarily being hooked in with a scanner. Now, obviously, you'll get more data coming through a scanner, but they're integrating that more and more of the vehicle is being controlled by electronics.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Yeah,
throttle in my
we get
truck
that.
right now is not physically connected to the throttle body. The pedal is not physically connected. They do it through the engine computer and the engine controller.
So, so what? How much fear? I guess fear might be a strong word. Concern should we have about our privacy, in as far as take the NSA government oversight? I
Hang on
mean,
a sec.
is that? Oh, okay.
How
We've got
unprofessional.
we've got an important call coming in from the White House.
Yeah. Don't let us disturb you.
I need to figure out what it was that just started playing on my phone. That was
That was that was a
muted it, so-
ghost. That was a ghost trying to.
yeah, that wasn't
Yeah.
the ringtone. That looks like that sounded like a Home Depot ad actually. I
Weird.
have a page opened up on my browser that I didn't know about.
You should have closed your porn tab before you got on here.
I would never do that. You need to have handy access to that.
That's true.
So
Who's been
how
assassinated?
Hmm?
Midget B says assassinations have been carried out using this method.
Probably all over the world. Yeah, I'm sure he can give you a name if you. Yeah.
Because it's not that the nerd talk isn't great. It's just you lose me real quickly when you start talking about beams going into space and then into a throttle, whatever a throttle is.
Yeah, I know all this. It's not really nerd talk though. It's mechanic talk, I guess.
Yeah.
Blue collar talk, which I'm like,
well, I think this kind of as the cars are becoming more technologically advanced and more computerized, I do begin to worry about the Big Brother aspect of it from Big Brother NSA. How much can we expect of our privacy to? I mean, how do we? Are the cars capable of recording everything that goes on in the cabin at this point? I mean, do we know that's not
your phone-
happening?
Theoretically.
your phone does already, and yeah, if you have like Bluetooth that connects to it, I imagine.
Yeah, there's a microphone sitting right above me in my truck.
Yeah.
The speakers, there's no camera in there, but yeah, the microphone's right up there. Theoretically, Bluetoothing, you could go in and take a recording of anything I was saying.
See, and this is so
I like Commissar Ferrari's here.
Yeah, I saw.
In our democratic paradise, privacy is for nerds.
right.
Right.
It's going.
Like, how do you avoid it? What kind of people would the NSA care to do that to? Would it just be like political dissidents?
Just
Yeah,
citizens.
dissidents.
Citizens.
Can I do it to my enemies?
They gather all the information, and then if something is a hot button, they look for it in conversation, and then they go from there. I mean, this is what they do.
And then what-
Do what? Well, they determine how they need to, if it's actionable intelligence or what they need to, leave it alone or move forward, or go and bust up a ring of people who are planning an attack in California, right? I mean, this is what that kind of information is giving them.
Yeah.
Okay.
But to be fair, though, you also have to look at the incompetency of those three-letter
Agencies, yeah.
Cs. Yeah. I mean, so you were talking about,
Sure.
breaking up a shooting. The FBI were warned. I mean, to be fair, they were warned, like, what was it, like 8 minutes before it happened? So they were warned and they put out an alert, apparently. And
Those are 8 crucial minutes.
yeah, but
Talking about the
obviously
one
it still
Florida?
happened. No, the one in San Diego that just happened the other day. I believe
Who was shot?
it was in a
What?
synagogue there. So I think only one person died though.
That's what I heard. Is one Jew died, and then like 100 Christians died the other day, and no one gave a shit. And everyone's talking about the one Jew.
Right.
The Easter worshippers.
Well, yeah, they're just Easter worshippers. They're not really Christians. They're just Easter
Well,
worshippers.
if they're Easter worshippers,
Well, no, they
It's
actually
just-
worship Easter. That's the
But-
thing. It's their whole thing. Their whole religion is around Easter. You know.
Sometimes I wonder
No.
about the
Yeah.
like the one in Florida. Like they got so many warnings that it's like it's almost like you wanted that kid to go shoot him. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Exactly. So that's what I mean when you have to talk about like the incompetency that goes on. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want
It might
anyone
not be
spying
just
on any.
incompetency. It might be active malice. I mean, they might just. I feel like these people. It's just like human beings are just like numbers on a page to them. So they plus and minus and push what they want. Which
welcome
I
to
guess would
reality.
be, like, highly active.
Welcome to the reality of your world. I mean, from the top down, almost every government is the same way. Every official body is the same way. Your numbers. That's what we are. I mean, it's an ever-changing data
what should we
sheet.
do about it?
What's that?
What caliber do I need? Huh?
What caliber do you need?
Yeah, like what do I do about this situation as a civilian?
Well, you take action, and like you start with
try not to get shot.
You start with civil action, and that's why people run for office. That's why they try and make changes from within and get things steered in the right direction. Or you go the ultimate route, and there's a revolution. But I don't see that happening in the same way people think it. Picture it in this day and age.
If we wanted to start a revolution, how would we go about it nowadays? Just theoretically.
We don't need to start a revolution. We just need to prevent the communist revolution from coming to our shores.
I'm just being hypothetical.
They're already
If we
here,
wanted
though.
to start one, how would we do it?
Well, we start by not having hypothetical conversations on broadcast channels about what we would do to overthrow the government. That's the first thing that we do.
No one said anything about that, right?
Yeah, you want to talk about what the NSA is going to start spying for?
Yeah.
No, I mean you've got to overhaul your government from within. I mean that's all you
Right.
can do. You've got to
Just gotta get out there and vote, guys. Get out there and vote.
If you don't think people are making the right policies and are pursuing things in the right way, or if you think there are things being ignored, get up and get a soapbox out and stand on your soapbox and start talking. I mean, I met a kid just recently here in local town. He was doing the same. He's fresh out of college, getting out in college or almost finished, whatever. But he's like wanting to get into political office in his local county. Was it county? County level county commissioner. And I'm like, bravo. This is a kid that wants to get involved. He wants to see change. He wants to see something, or he wants a paycheck. One of the two. Wait, he's streaming with Matt Christensen?
Yeah. Steven's ignoramus. At the
nice.
same time, we are like a jerk.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding. I
Hey,
love
I was on
Steven.
his show while you guys were on.
Yeah, I know he's a jerk. God.
Wow.
No, he's stepping on us.
I have another
What's up?
commitment I forgot about.
No, right? Okay, yeah, sorry. Ooh, yeah.
Hey, what channel is that
We
on?
just started. Yeah. Real funny guys. God. We invite you guys on for a nice chat. Let's all just go watch Matt.
Right.
You know what? Let's
If they leave,
stream
we have
snipe him.
less witnesses to the
Stream
revolution.
snipe him?
You want to stream snipe him?
No.
No.
So
This isn't Twitch. We can't do raids.
Oh, we can totally do raids. We got enough people in the chat right now.
Do we?
Mm-hmm. We can tell Maddie has a funny nose or
put
something.
together that
Do what?
the constitutional convention or whatever.
Yeah,
When
I
they
heard
put
about
together the constitutional convention.
Oh, they're
Yeah,
doing
back
it.
in like 1780 or something.
Oh, I was saying they want to do a new one coming up. I thought that's what you're going to talk
Yeah,
about.
how
My
do you
bad.
do that? Because they
I'm
were
not-
traitors, and it seemed to work out well.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that works
Right.
nowadays, but yeah.
Well, right now there are advertisements out there. Shapiro is one of the big advertisers for it, and all the rest of the those on the Daily Wire, talking about putting together. They've got a website where you can get more information about it, about putting together a convention of states to go back and try to amend the Constitution to prevent more overreaches of power, which seem to be happening more and more on a daily basis. We do have to go back and start doing this at a state level because the federal level was never intended to be this big.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Aren't the people that run Daily Wire, aren't they like mostly like Israeli? Or am I wrong about that?
That
I
seems a
don't
bit racist.
Ed would know
No,
more
that's
than I
that's
would.
nationalist by definition.
Did you just
No,
call
they
me a
are.
nationalist?
No, I called myself a nationalist. Um,
Are you a socialist as well? Are you a national socialist?
I mean, well,
My
here's
God,
the
you're
thing.
Nazi.
Like Ben Shapiro likes Israel more than America, if I remember correctly, and so
That's
does
propaganda.
and so does Boring, the guy who owns it.
That's propaganda.
Does that mean it's untrue?
I don't
Is
think
I
that
don't know.
Boring is, and I don't think Shapiro does either.
Do you think if you put a gun to Shapiro's head, which country do you think he would want to succeed if he had to choose, America or Israel?
I doubt he would want to live in
he wanted
Israel.
Israel's wall before America's. So then my question would be, if that is how they are, would we want the people writing our Constitution, rewriting our Constitution as they're advocating, to be people who care more about a different country than the country they're writing the Constitution for? Wouldn't that kind of be like the English king writing a Constitution for the colonies?
I think it's pretty much protected. You can care about whichever country you want here in this country. That's protected. That's freedom of speech. I mean, that's a pure right from the start. I mean, there's nothing. It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't. It only affects you on a personal level. It doesn't affect the country as a whole.
I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Well, historically, whenever there was a time of great crisis in America, they always had to separate people based on those who wanted America to succeed and those who wanted some other country to succeed. The Revolutionary War, it was the Royalists. In the Civil War, it was the Confederates, obviously, and the Copperheads or whatever. The War of 1812, there were people who were pro-British. Like, it's happened over and over again. The Japanese internment camps. German, at a certain point, it's like the country's collapsing and other countries are profiting from our collapse. It wouldn't be smart to have people who support other countries above this country to be the ones who write the rules for it, if you know what I mean.
Well, you have to understand as well that Convention of States is actually not it's not centered in the Daily Wire. That's actually something that's been going around through state houses through this country for a few years at this point, not just under these past couple of years, but I mean, going back into the W era, there were people that were talking about Convention of States and making sure certain things were amended into the Constitution that Congress would never touch. We can still override Congress by a Convention of States.
So
they are just advertising for it on the Daily Wire.
Who would be in charge of it?
Right. That's always my question.
It would be decentralized. Right? Yeah.
So no one's in charge of it? Because that's what decentralized means. Who is no one? Who's in charge of it? Someone's got to do it. You can't say decentralized.
Hey, Jake from Freedom Scoop. What's up, bro?
Am I insane, or I'm just...
Well, no. I mean,
it's not that any one person would be in charge of it.
It would be representatives of the whole.
So
much like we do with the Electoral College and what we do with Congress and our House of Representatives.
So
I'm a little worried about the fact that you go straight to the idea of who has to be in charge.
Right.
Why?
Because there doesn't necessarily need to be somebody in charge.
Right. I mean, you would kind of just come to a consensus if you could. Everyone would vote on.
The people representing us to it would be the people we would elect from our state houses.
Everyone votes right now. It hasn't worked well.
Well, it's been working for like 250 years.
I mean, it's worked because we've always voted to give the government more power, and now they have it. So I think it's worked pretty well.
I'm not going to say it's perfect, and I know there's things that we could do to make it more perfect, but I mean, we just need to be Americans, and we need to do things the way Americans are supposed to do, and we're supposed to govern ourselves and leave it to someone to protect the rights that we use to govern ourselves. I mean, govern our actions and govern our decency and govern our morals. Granted, everybody's going to be different, but we're Americans, and that's it. Americans killing Americans, that's just fucking stupid. It's just fucking stupid. And I would
Happens
think
all the time.
I would think that anybody who's a nationalist could understand that. Don't kill off your own fucking population. I mean, that's just not smart thinking. I mean, who's going to stand up and fight with you if you kill them all off?
The thing with the Convention of States, the concept that they're trying to go back to in this particular Convention of States is pulling that centralized power away from one person, because we've given so much power to both the Congress and the presidency. Wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to worry and go out and protest because one president got in or the other one did? Because we were supposed to be a loose, almost autonomous collection of individual states, and that we were never supposed to have this much federal power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where does the power go?
Away.
Wait, where does
Away?
it go?
Bye-bye. Yeah,
It goes
away.
somebody.
No, it doesn't.
No, it goes-
Yeah, it doesn't
goes
need to.
away.
It doesn't need to go to somebody.
What do you mean by power?
The governing power doesn't need to be there. We are a free nation. We are not a monarchist nation, even though the other side and even some on our side have done their goddamnedest to make sure that our president becomes a king. Our president was never intended to be a king.
Mm-hmm.
So no, the power doesn't need to be anywhere. We are free people. We are not a subjugated people.
So the decision should be made more at the local and state level than they should at the federal level. And
Where
that's
you have
kind
to
of-
look your representatives in the eye in the
Right.
grocery store.
Exactly.
I mean, I've talked to my representative. I got a form email back. She seems like a dumb bitch.
And that's and that's
It doesn't
where
seem to improve the situation. It seems like a great opiate for our annoyance,
and
but it doesn't seem like it fixes anything.
that's supposed to be that is where
Well,
that's where some people take the impetus to do something about it themselves.
Well, it
I mean,
certainly stops people from making. It stops Congress and the president, especially through executive order, from making one-size-fits-all laws for 50 different states where one size does not necessarily fit all. In fact, it doesn't fit most.
You should understand that entirely because you've lived in Seattle and North Carolina.
Yeah, they can't be.
There are different needs completely between the people of Seattle and between the people of North Carolina.
Right.
It's the same with living in Boston and living in Wisconsin.
That's
The
true.
needs of the people
If,
of both of those states are entirely different.
If you gave more power to the state or the city governments in Washington, it would be more tyrannical than how it is right now.
But
And
it
then
wouldn't
you can
affect
leave.
us over here. Yeah, it
Yeah,
wouldn't
exactly.
affect us over there.
Because Seattle would write all the rules for the whole state of Washington, which is a massive state. So my
But then they
problem
also,
live in
but then they also can't go against the Constitution, and that's what the federal government is supposed to be
I think
for.
we actually
The
need
Supreme
a way
Court
to
as well.
take power away from people who have no morals. That's what it seems to me. I think
morals
it
are,
should
but
be
morals
taking
are
power.
morals are
Morals are-
subjective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Morals are
aren't subjective.
they are
Morals
abso-
are completely
Absolutely
objective.
subjective.
but morals are
Completely objective.
based in belief. And when two people believe
Well,
differently, their
morals are based on principle.
principles
and
belief.
principles are
based in
subjective.
natural law.
Right.
Morals are based in natural law. There's not a single moral that is a true moral that isn't based in natural law. It's simply a rule that you follow that causes life instead of death. That's all a moral is. You can't argue with it. They're completely objective. You might be wrong about them, but they're completely objective.
I don't think so, because everyone has different morals. I mean,
yeah, and
Yeah.
they revolve around different things. I mean, there's morals about stealing too, that don't result in life or death. They just result
Yes,
in
they do.
theft.
and property loss, yeah.
If you lose your property, ultimately that creates enmity between people, which destroys cohesion, which is something that leads to tyranny, which is something that leads to death. The wages of sin are death. You can.
I mean, you
can
can make that argument about pretty much anything, though.
And
About
there's
anything leading to death.
There's no argument you can make that stealing leads to life.
But it doesn't have to lead to death. Just because something doesn't lead to life doesn't mean it leads to death. And plus,
Yes.
stealing can lead to life if you're starving and you steal a loaf of bread. That leads to your continued life, at the very least.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely, it would. You would eat.
Define starving.
saying if you're actually like starving, you're actually not like
the
I haven't
need for
eaten in
food.
3 hours.
The need
Right.
for food to live.
Or if you're
do you ever met
diabetic and your
anybody
blood
like
sugar is
that?
crashing.
Blood sugar
Oh
crashing.
yeah, that too. Yeah.
I mean, this idea of morals, though. I mean, you believe in morals that are based in natural law, and I believe morals are based in natural human desires and instincts
See,
and
I go with
drive.
principle.
One of
And
us
it's
is
I go
different.
with
right.
principle. Your principles guide your morals.
Right, and it's different from person to person.
Yeah.
This how I look at the world is going
One
to
of
be
us is
different than
wrong.
you. No,
One of us is wrong.
how so? But
Well,
That's
no.
the
then that
basis of
means
the argument.
that means there are 7.5 billion wrong ideas in this
Yeah.
world. I mean, so
Yeah.
who's
Because people
right?
invent new ways.
Who's then how do you determine who's right out of 7.5 billion people? You don't. You
Through
give in to the
argumentation,
greater
logic,
good.
discovery
Right.
of natural law,
So wait. Through argumentation,
logic,
right? Which
and
is
discovery of natural law. Yes.
right. Which no argumentation and logic though that is subjective, right? You're trying to convince someone that your morals are correct.
And
it's
if
changing
you
their
are
subjective
arguing, that
opinion.
means that there's a
No,
gray
you're
area that can
thinking
be solved.
persuasion.
Right.
You're thinking, hey, let's go to this. So you said it's wrong for a nationalist to want to kill his own citizens, right?
Robert
I
said that, I
think
believe.
no. I said it's. I think it's a bad move. It's kind of foolhardy to kill off people in your own nation if you're a nationalist. Just
What do you think of the Civil War?
well, I think that was. I think it should never have happened. I hate that it happened. Now, the necessity of it. I don't think that the reasoning behind that most people think behind the Civil War wasn't at the actual. It was more about money, if I'm not mistaken. Right there, at the root of all this was money.
Well, I mean,
you think-
so yeah, you could
Would
bring it back
advocate
to the
that?
I mean, and war that can be rooted in money is I don't love it at all. I don't love wars over oil. I don't love it. I
What
don't.
about the Revolutionary War?
Okay, that was a war for freedom.
Hmm.
But we killed our own citizens.
Well, that's
We didn't have citizens.
those
Yeah,
weren't
they
our
were
citizens.
citizens of the-
Those were
yeah, of the
citizens
crown.
of the crown.
No.
of the crown. Yeah,
Benedict Arnold.
subjects.
That's the point to a
American
revolution.
Benedict Arnold is a really sad story. That poor guy. I really feel bad for him.
Most of the
Obviously
people-
not because of
Hey,
what he did. But
I love eggs Benedict. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
Eggs
and I
Benedict is
eat them
good.
every time I go for breakfast at a place.
But no,
that serves them.
Benedict Arnold got screwed over and over and over again, and he was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go to the other side. I mean, I can kind
You
of see
think-
where he's coming from, but
Do you think there's ever a reason for killing your own citizens for a civil war? Because it seems to me that people fight.
those are two different
for a reason.
things.
Well,
Those are two
and
different
you also
things,
have
though.
to consider the fact that during the Civil War, we weren't the one country at the time, so they technically weren't our citizens.
Yeah, that's got that
If
needs to
the
be
South had
understood.
won, it would not have been called a civil war.
Right. It would have been the War of Secession, right?
Oh.
Because that's how they looked at it anyway,
Well,
right?
no, they called it the War of Northern Aggression. That's what they called
Northern
it at the time.
Aggression. Oh, it was Texas that
Yeah.
had the War of Secession, wasn't it? They had a little war,
I
didn't
believe
they?
so.
A battle? War?
Well, they had a war.
Wasn't
Well,
much.
they were part of the Spanish-American War or the Mexican-American War, but that was a little bit after.
Right.
Or
But,
yeah,
So
I believe.
Look, I mean, there are going to be circumstances. I could see situations where, you could go into lots of scenarios. Okay, somebody invades and starts forcing Americans to take up arms after they've been captured. Yeah, I mean, are you put in positions where you might have to do that? Yes, but making the conscious, premeditated decision to just go off some other Americans. Not a fan. I don't love that
well, that's
at all.
different. That's
Right,
different
right.
than
What do you
you're
think is
talking
happening at
Because
these?
you gave this blanket moral statement that I think was wrong. Because obviously there are times when it's appropriate to kill someone.
Okay, I didn't make any blanket statement other than giving my opinion and saying my opinion is that
It
it's
was kind of an
foolhardy.
offhanded.
It's foolhardy to kill your own people if you're a nationalist, in my opinion. It's
Yeah,
foolhardy.
if you're a nationalist, your people are your means of production, and they're your taxpayers.
That's
If you
not
kill
laying out
them,
a blanket moral judgment of anything. That's me just giving my opinion. I think it's foolhardy. If anything else, that's a strategic move on my part to keep as many people around me as I can that want to fight for my nation. I mean, call it what you will, but no, I don't. I don't condone the killing of other people. I don't condone the killing of other
Is there
people in
ever
other
an
countries,
appropriate?
but I sure as hell don't condone the killing of Americans by Americans. I don't think that's great. Unless it's in self-defense, then by all means, stand your
Yeah.
ground. But outside of that,
Is
just
there such
because
a
you
thing
want to
as-
prove a
is there
point,
such a
because
thing-
you believe something and you think your morals are more important than others, that's a foolish reason. Foolish.
I don't think so, because I was just reading a story where there was a collection of 13 different closely related nations, and one of them was killing its women and children, and so the other 12 gathered together, invaded them, and killed all of them. And I was struggling with it because I wasn't sure if that was the right move, but it seems to me that was the right move. Sometimes you have to go and women and children. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Now, see, if I were a pure nationalist, I wouldn't care what happens in that other country. I don't
And
care.
I think that's wrong.
But then that's that feeds into this idea that we have in America, where our government goes and sticks its nose into other countries' problems and drags us into
I think we
conflicts, or drags us in behind the scenes into conflicts and causes bullshit, scandals, and problems within our government. The corruption that it breeds is so intense. We need to stay out of other people's problems in the world, unless it's having a direct impact on the lives of Americans.
See, this is why I think it keeps happening, though, is because I think what you're saying, the end result of what you're saying is true, but the logic that gets you there is flawed. Because I do think we have a moral responsibility to investigate other nations and decide whether or not to act upon what they're doing, even if it doesn't affect us. I think, and there will always be people that think that, and they won't listen to the logic you're using, because just taking care of us isn't the right logic for people who think that way. So, what it seems to me, though, is, my brother went to Afghanistan and was defending a governor that was having little boys brought into him every night. And so it seems to me like problem is that we're so confused, and we don't actually talk about the truth of it, that we end up fighting on the side of the evil people. If it's two evil people fighting each other, it's completely different.
You're asserting the idea that it's okay for us to go in somewhere else and impose our own moral values and judgments on someone else who doesn't share the same ideologies, the same thoughts, and the same morals.
Yes.
And you're saying that's okay.
Yes.
Because I would throw out the Inquisition to you. That was okay? Mm-hmm. Imposing the Christian moral values on the rest of the world by hook or by crook. We will kill you if you don't believe.
They didn't have correct morals. That's the problem.
Who has the correct morals?
It was still subjective, though, right? See this.
The problem is that the people who use the argument of forcing morals on other people oftentimes don't have any morals, and they're in there for personal gain. The people in charge of the Spanish Inquisition, a lot of them, most of them, the leaders, were in it for personal gain or for the purpose of destroying good people. They weren't actually. They were saying we are forcing morality on people, which is a good thing. I think of a story I read about an English governor during the British Empire, and he was in control of a nation in Nepal or something. And
Waco is a good example.
It is a good example. Better than the Inquisition.
Mm-hmm.
They were sacrificing virgins, and you guys are probably familiar with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
What you're saying?
No, we're talking about Waco.
Yeah, the chat was saying Waco is a better example than the Inquisition.
let me finish my example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So they were sacrificing virgins, these primitive people that the British had imperialized, and the British governor came to him and said, "Hey, you can't sacrifice virgins in a volcano anymore." And he said, "Well, you have to respect our right to believe what we believe." And the English governor said, "Oh yeah, well, I'll respect your right to believe what you believe and act on it, as long as you respect my right to believe what I believe and act on it. And what I believe is that murderers get hung." And so no one sacrificed virgins anymore. So it's definitely right to impose moral values on other people.
Wait.
How so?
So
is that
wait.
right?
So
How
in
is
that
that-
in that example, well, in that example,
in the defense of
when
women and children, in the defense
Yeah,
of
when-
the
when-
fatherless and the widows,
when lives are in danger, yes, you
they're
can
always
do that.
in
But that's not.
so
Yeah, but there's a
the
difference
argument shouldn't
between.
be the
Go
argument
ahead.
shouldn't be whether or not we get involved in somebody else's problems. The argument should be what the morals actually are, because that's where the real argument is. And we get distracted with this isolationism argument, which if we're incapable, that's one thing.
Have
But as soon
you
as we're capable, the argument is
Have
let's
you-
figure out if it's morally.
have you ever considered the possibility that we can't decide on one set of moral values because it is
Yeah,
subjective? It
I
is
started-
completely
I-
subjective. There's no way to impose moral values on somebody and do it in the
Well,
name
no, I
of
mean-
freedom.
Right.
You
So hang on,
cannot
because
say
that
we're making
example.
you
Hang
free.
on, Robert.
What's
That example that you gave, or that Nate gave, is exactly the argument for subjective morals. Right. One side thought that what they were doing was moral. The other side thought
Exactly.
what they were doing is moral. And obviously, as you know, a Western nation, we believe that the British were probably more moral in that case. But
The
The
British
people
were
overall-
involved did not believe
It's not
that.
a belief. It was true. It was true.
Okay,
It was
so
objectively true.
How?
The British were more moral.
how is it
And
objectively
those
true?
Nepalese were, because it was life over
Nate,
death.
I hate to tell you this, but this sounds an awful lot like imperialism and slavery.
right.
Like what?
I don't know about
Imperialism and
slavery.
They would.
I don't know about slavery, but certainly imperialism.
But people would have made moral arguments about slavery from the standpoint that slaves were no different than animals, so they had no morals, and thus they were subjugated for slavery. I mean, that's and they rested on morals.
That's a
and
subjective
they said,
moral judgment. Yeah.
right?
What you're saying is actually not true for the vast majority of people that held slaves. What you're saying only applies to a very small group of people, and most of them didn't hold slaves.
You
most
mean
of them
that
were-
had
were
their own subjective
scientists.
morals?
The people who held slaves and lived with them, most of them were born into it, and they said, "This is terrible, but if I release these people out into South Carolina society, now they have no ability to get a job or provide for themselves, so they couldn't just release them." You can read letters and letters and letters from George Washington talking about that. So what you're saying actually isn't true. The argument people used for slavery was not that they were animals. Some people did, and those people were
Okay, so and that's how I said.
Slavery-
that's why I said some
slavery-
people would have argued back then. Some people argued
slavery
that
is not
way.
immoral.
Okay, so
Slavery
you can
is
throw
not
up
immoral.
any example, whether
So you said
Waco,
slavery
whether
is not
it's
what?
Slavery is not immoral.
Slavery is not immoral.
Immoral.
Okay,
It's not
I want to hear that.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I'll disavow
why-
as
why
I
do you
listen.
Yes.
Why do you
Just
think
about.
slavery is immoral?
Well, for starters, I want to keep my channel.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think it's right for anyone to own another human
Yeah,
being.
you don't subjugate other people, and that's what happens when you impose moral values on a culture by stepping into
vast-
their conflicts. You subjugate
And that was
them.
the point that I was going for when I said that sounds like imperialism and slavery. You're
Gotcha.
imposing your moral values over onto a society that's never needed these values, that's never seen these values, and has thrived for thousands of years. Now you suddenly
Not
want to come in
thrived.
and change them
It
because
has not thrived for thousands of years. It hasn't. Most of those societies were, it's like when Columbus showed up in Hispaniola,
hmm
Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and he saw a bunch of naked people running around, and they asked him, "Hey, could you kill these people that are eating us?" And he said, "Sure." So he saw naked people running around, eating what came off of the ground, and then other naked people coming, killing them and eating them. And he said,
I see that on Warped Tour every year.
And he said, and he said, these people are like animals. And then what happened after that was a few hundred years, or actually a very short time, where their quality of living increased. You know what I mean? And they became more civilized. There was a reason why their lives improved.
Okay, so the
Let's
civilization was brought to them.
Wait. Let's go back to slavery. I want you to make the moral case for slavery.
Because they were
Disavow.
Yeah, obviously, I want to hear it though.
Well, people make the mistake of assuming I'm talking about American chattel slavery.
You're talking about indentured servitude.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about indentured servitude either. I'm talking about slavery. I'm talking about slavery. Slavery. The vast majority of slaves that have existed in history were sold into slavery by themselves. The wealthiest and most influential people in Rome in its heyday were slaves. A huge amount of people talks about in the Bible about people who, because in the Bible it says you can only hold a slave for like 7 years, something like that.
Right, that's indentured servitude, yeah. Right.
If it's in your nation, and then if you let that person go and that person says no, I want to stay with you for life, I love you, then you make that person a slave for life. So you can see an example of people choosing to do it. And I would assert to you what I believe is that employment is a form of part-time slavery. I remember when I got a job working at a medical lab, and I was required, because it was a blood product lab, I was required to report anybody who I had a suspicion of being a homosexual because they were at high risk of AIDS. And I had to sign a document saying I would do that. My morals would have prevented me from doing that. And I signed over my actual morals in a document while I was on the clock for that company. And that's when I realized I was a slave. And people who work for a company all their life and then get on a pension, that was voluntary lifetime slavery. That's what that is. Now, it's the best form of, it's the most compassionate and healthy form of slavery that's ever been invented, and it's still terribly unhealthy and terribly cruel.
So I disagree with your definition of slavery, because I don't think that two people entering into a contract together is slavery. I think that someone being forced, without consent to do work is slavery.
When you enter into a contract to be an employee, you sign, like for instance, I signed a job description that said anything. So I signed a contract that said I will do anything the job description says, and the job description says any duty assigned by manager. So I then had to do anything, but by force, essentially.
Not by force.
No, that is by
right. That's not by force, because you can leave at any time.
Okay, take a black slave on a plantation
who could not leave at any time without threat of actual violence. Your manager at that place is not going to impose violence on you.
Well, mine does, but that's
well, you like that though, yeah. that's consensual still. But
violence is the definition of slavery, because historically,
no, violence is a definition of force. You must have violence to force someone to do something.
Yeah, slavery was enforced with violence. Work is enforced with a paycheck.
Right, and you can leave at any time.
And they won't hurt you when you do.
Right.
Yeah, they will. They will remove your livelihood.
No, you.
But you can find other livelihood.
You remove your livelihood. You're in control of that job. Your actions and your decisions control whether or not you continue to get that paycheck. If you do the right things that the company asks for you to do, you continue to get a paycheck. If you walk away, you no longer do, and that's on you. That's not them doing shit to you. The company has no control over you walking away if you so choose. And they have no fault, unless you're walking away because you didn't like your manager, but you didn't use the chain of command to do something about it.
What about a soldier?
That's
what about
a
a soldier?
contract.
Somebody?
He signs a
that's
contract.
It's again voluntarily, signing a contract.
If a soldier disobeys certain commands, he'll be shot.
And also,
That's
if a soldier obeys certain commands, he'll also be shot. Or no, he won't be. Yeah, he'll be arrested. He won't be shot necessarily. But there's actually a law that, or it's a standing order, I think, where if you obey an illegal order, you are guilty of whatever crime that is, and so is the officer who told you to do it.
Brother, as a Marine, was accused of mutiny, and for that they kill you. And he was done that because he questioned one of his commanding officers' decision to make a 72-hour forced march. And so they would have killed him.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds like a court-martial for his commanding officer.
Yeah.
again, that's a contract.
And they would have killed him to keep him from talking.
And
you don't think that falls under your definition of slavery, the way you put it?
No, not at all.
Oh.
Because they're
He wasn't
willingly
conscripted.
they're willingly walking in and signing a contract and
Yeah,
saying,
he wasn't conscripted.
I give up my freedoms and my privacy to you, the military, in exchange for
That's
a
what
paycheck,
slaves do.
training, and I will protect whatever you tell me to protect. They walk in willingly. The draft isn't happening anymore.
That's what most slaves
Yeah,
did in history.
yeah, the draft is different.
Most slaves in history were voluntary slaves.
Sure, they
sold
were like,
themselves into
"Oh, a
slavery.
cruise?
I don't know if
You're
that's
telling
true,
me this
though.
is a cruise?
It is
Where does
true.
this cruise go? Oh, this is not a
I don't know.
cruise."
I need to see some sources for that because
Right?
I'm
What's-
pretty sure most slaves were serfs. They were tied to the land, and whoever was lording over that land at that point was the master, basically.
Serfdom
But it was
existed in
basically
Europe, which had a very small population compared to
serfdom
US.
existed in a lot of places, not just
There was
Europe,
slavery-
but
there was slavery in
Egypt,
for war.
Greece, Sparta, the Arab
well,
world.
Sparta, Greece. I'm not sure why
Most of
he
those-
put both of those in there.
Most of those,
Well,
most of those
because they
people
wanted to be their own
sold
Spartans.
themselves into slavery. Most
Do
of those
what?
people sold themselves into slavery because they could not afford to live.
So
They
they
said,
contracted
in
out the
exchange-
rest of their life.
Well, a lot of them were
Think about-
prisoners, and a lot of them were like
And
prisoners
they
of
could
war,
become-
especially. Most of them, I think, were prisoners of
A lot
war.
of them were spoils. A lot of them were spoils in war, but not the majority of them.
So let me ask you this question then: if someone willingly sells themselves into a position like that, is that not their right to do?
Yes, that's why
Okay.
it's not immoral.
Okay, so that's
my
not
point.
immoral, but is it immoral
I would
to
submit
take
to you
slaves?
that that we're all slaves. That
But
we've
you
all done-
can't blanket say slavery is immoral if that's the only part of slavery that is moral. You
I think
can't.
what was happening over here was immoral.
Yeah, if you
Very-
go and
very-
drag people from their homes onto boats and take them halfway across the world, that's not moral.
Yeah, that's not moral.
Yeah,
Okay.
he wasn't. He
That's
wasn't
how-
making that point.
But a lot of
But he
slaves.
wasn't making that point.
Specifically, what I said specifically is slavery is not immoral. And
Right.
that is true. Slavery is not moral, but the process by which it's what it is. It's complicated, and the process by which you acquire slaves, or the process that
Well,
someone becomes.
wait. What is
or what
what
happens
is the
after
name
they
for
become
selling
slaves.
yourself into slavery? Is that not in that's
Indentured servitude.
Is it indentured servitude, right? Or
No.
life? It still falls under indentured servitude, right?
No.
No?
Greek slaves, Roman slaves, Hebrew slaves, slaves in ancient societies, slaves for most of human history. Those were slaves. Indentured servants were specifically a short-term contract. At the end of this 7 years, you will set me free no matter what's going on, and you will also give me these wages from my work. And so they
Yeah, but they would also work them to
That's
death, so that
exactly.
they wouldn't. Yeah, so they wouldn't have to honor that contract at the end. They could just
No.
work them to death. The
Yeah, they
indentured
would-
servants. Yeah.
Exactly. Now,
was brutal.
slavery leads to immorality, but slavery the problem is I think, I love freedom, but freedom is not the hallmark of what is good. You can be good and be a slave. You can be good and be free. And so, if we say freedom is the most important thing, we're wrong, and we will fail, because we'll give freedom to people who will conquer us and tyrannize us. That's what will happen. And
How is
you
that
guys-
different from what Britain was? Let's bring that right back to that.
What's up? You cut out there, Ed.
How is that different from what England was doing to Nepal? Going right back to that.
to to the example I gave with the Virgin?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
going in and
they should
taking
have
their
done
freedom
that.
away.
Britain went out and imperialized other countries and improved them. The most successful third world countries were ones that were under British rule. Now, a lot of it was immoral people too, but it wasn't the imperialism that was the immorality. It was what people did once they imperialized those people.
And what's Britain's running history with countries that don't want to be under their thumb anymore? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, they've kind of got a list of folks who are like, we would like to not be under your thumb anymore. We'd like what we have back. Thanks. Didn't we just have that happen in Asia? That was Japan, right?
Japan.
Not Japan.
Not recently.
Not Japan. What was within the last couple of decades?
Northern Ireland?
No,
After
in
World
Asia.
War I,
Oh, in Asia.
the
India?
majority-
Would have
John
been
doesn't have a
India.
map.
Yeah, I don't have a map
the
on me.
majority of England's imperial holdings after
Hong Kong.
were
Thinking of
given
Hong
freedom.
Kong.
Were given freedom after World War I because of the devastation of the male population in World War I. And Churchill was one of the few people who was saying, no, we have to hold on to our empire. But the British people were so pacifist at that point, and just because most of the fighters died, it was millions, and then they gave freedom to most of their imperial holdings. That was the time when it happened, and then those countries proceeded to sink into poverty because they were not ready to govern themselves. India's situation, worse. I mean, as soon as they got free of England, they proceeded to launch into a major religious civil war and kill, and murder. It was terrible. It's terrible. They weren't improved by being away from England. Now, was England exploiting them? Sure, and that was immoral. But it's complicated. That's all I'm saying. And we act like it's simple, and it's not, and it doesn't help us. It really doesn't. If we just act like we should not be involved in any of the world's problems, what's going to happen is we're going to be conquered. But I'm not saying we should be involved in all of the world's problems or that we should be doing what we're doing. It seems to me what's happening is people like you guys who are advocating for freedom are ignored, and then people who advocate for morality, who actually don't hold any morality, then convince the vast majority of the population that believes in morality still to go to war with somebody and actually fight on the side of evil because they're being exploited. Whereas you guys who have morality, if you believed in morality and support it, could actually put up a fight. But because you believe in freedom as the biggest moral goal, you're ignored. And evil people win because they advocate for morality and then just trick people. That's what happens. That's Iraq. Yeah. That's Syria. That's Yemen. That's Libya. That's that's the history of the last 50 years.
What were you going to say, Jay?
Oh, I was going to say, hang on, I'll be right back. So.
All right, Edgar, you had something you were going to say.
Well, yeah, I had a question about, because you said that once these people took back their freedom, once they were let go, I say they kicked the British out, but for the most part, I think they got their freedom. Yeah, and they slipped back into poverty. Let me ask you. Let me localize this a little bit. So you've got a friend that's absolutely 100% terrible with money. What cannot handle the money, overdrafts his check all the time. Is it moral for you to literally go in and take over every aspect of his finances, or does he stay a free person?
It's not a good example. A better example would be...
How is that not a good example?
Because there's no prior existing relationship. There's a prior existing relationship with the imperialism between England and India.
I just stated that there was a prior existing relationship.
Your friends? Because that doesn't...
You and your friend, yeah. That's a prior existing relationship.
That doesn't describe the relationship between England and India. When England came to India, India didn't have a united government. England created that government. So
let me change the example. Hold on.
If it was your son...
Let me change the example of this. Okay. A child moves out of his parents' house, and his parents are relatively successful, but the child then moves out of his parents' house at, let's say, 26. So it's actually it's actually normal that he would be out of the house by that point. He moves out at 26, and again, he goes back to the same example. He can never keep money in his a checking account. He is overdrafting everything. Can normally function in society, keeps a job and everything, but just keeps overdrafting on his money, spending on stupid crap. Now, do the parents go in and take over those finances? Is that moral? Is that and force him to take over his finances, or is he allowed to remain a free person? Now there's a prior existing relationship.
Once India became independent, it would not have been moral for England to come back and take control again. They should have let them fail. However, they shouldn't have become independent. And this kid who's 26 years old, he's years behind the 8 ball. The parents, years before that, should have slowly weaned him off and given him bills he couldn't afford and just slowly got him ready, instead of holding on to him so much that he became stir crazy and then burst out and fell apart and tripped over his own feet. That's what should have happened. So they should have kept him in the house and slowly weaned him off. Does that make sense?
You're saying you should have never let him leave. Should have never let him grow up.
No. I'm saying the problem is that those parents didn't force him to leave sooner in a situation where they could have still supported him part ways. Because he didn't have the so they could have been like, okay, you're going to get your own apartment, figure out how to pay for it. But they're still paying for his phone and his car. You know what I mean? And that should have happened years and years before that.
So then
morality is complicated.
I still come back to the fundamental question.
Yeah.
What right do you have to impose your moral values on others?
The paternal right.
I'm sorry?
Why are your morals right?
You as an individual have paternal right.
Yes, adults have the right to impose moral values on children who don't know any better.
I don't think he's talking about children there.
Okay, no, I'm talking.
No, understand me. Most people over the age of 20 who are alive today in America are children.
Okay, let me rephrase the question then. What gives you the right to impose your moral values on me?
Well, you're not a child, so I don't have a right to impose moral values on you.
Then that is, by that very answer, morals are subjective. We don't have the right to impose our morals on anybody, here or abroad.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. Wrong.
It works on the larger scale as it does the smaller scales. If it's not right for you to impose your moral values on me, it's not right for you to impose your moral value on somebody else, whether it's here or abroad.
It would be right for me to impose my moral values on somebody who I was providing for in my household. I'll give you an example of this. And this is happening right now. This isn't like a choice whether or not this actually happens. It happens. We have no control over it. You can argue until you're blue in the face.
Yeah, it's called raising your kids.
You know, no, actually, it's called the social welfare system. Right now, people who cannot provide for themselves are sucking off the government, and the government is imposing their moral values on those people because they can't provide for themselves. My brother is older than me. It's right for me to impose my moral values on my brother, even though he's older than me, because I'm providing for him. The problem is guys like you guys who are good people would never impose your moral values on the people who are in the social welfare system. And so that creates a vacuum because it has to happen. It's objective natural law. And then the government does it. The government, which is an evil organization, so people in social welfare are evil moral values are imposed on them when people like me and you should do it. And that happens in private charity.
Hold on. So let's I don't want to conflate moral values and house rules. Like, your brother's an adult, right? But just because you provide the house, you get to control his moral values?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. He gets to believe how he wants. This is still a
democracy. I said moral values.
Well, and if he believes his morals to be different than yours, that's not okay?
If he won't act them out. It's not right for him to act them out.
That's completely different.
It's the social welfare system. The government forces its moral values on the people who it provides for in the social welfare system, and that is morally correct for them to do so. The problem is It's also completely, you can't prevent it. It's natural law. It will happen. It's morally correct, and so it shall happen. But the values it has, where you people become evil people. Most adults are children.
Yeah, I don't care how much moral value even the collective has. There's always going to be corruption. There's always going to be quote unquote evil, decadence, whatever sin. There's going to be. It's always going to exist, no matter how much you impose moral value on an individual or a culture or a country. It will still occur because it's all subjective.
Good people like you, who are a fully functioning adult.
You make the assumption that I'm good.
I'd never made that assumption.
You make the assumption that I'm a good, moral, upstanding person, and I can promise you, compared to the moral values that many people would throw at me, I am far from moral. I'm like, I root for the headboard cam. I'm so far from moral, it's not even funny in many regards for many people. Yet there is an entire cast of people that see what the morals the same way I do, and they don't judge me harshly. So who's right? The people that share my moral opinions or the people who don't? Why aren't my moral values just as important as yours? What makes yours right and mine wrong?
Objective law.
In what way?
Whose objective law? Natural law?
Well, I just demonstrated by using the example of the social welfare system how what I'm arguing will happen. It's inevitable.
Is that not the government?
It's morally correct to impose your values on people. It will happen. You can't prevent it. The problem is that good people think it's wrong to do that, and so only evil people ever impose their moral values on other people.
Right, but you're advocating going into another country and imposing our moral values.
Yes.
As okay, but it's never right to.
It is okay.
Then you're confusing me, because a moment ago you just said it's not right to impose your moral. Am I misunderstanding?
No, it is right. What I'm saying is that if you ignore the fact that there is a obligation to go into another country and impose your moral values on them, if you ignore, and that's the story of history. And there's been many good events in history that have happened because of that, with much bloodshed.
Okay, I need you to define two words for me first. First, I need you to, two terms. First, I need you to define natural law. What's the root of natural law? And what do you consider history? When you reference history, where are you getting your information from?
I like Michael Vega's idea in the chat, too.
Define good, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Good is creation. Anything that creates is good. It gets evil is destruction. Anything that destroys is evil. It gets complicated when you start talking about combinations where you're like, well, if you kill a murderer, you're killing an agent of destruction, and so that may be good. You know,
it's preventing further killing. So you can also create something that kills.
What if a pregnant woman shoots somebody?
So it means that a gun, right? A gun would be a moral evil, right? Because you're creating something that kills.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because it's not necessarily destruction. Because, for instance, you take a gun to shoot a rabbit, you've destroyed that rabbit. Then you take what you produced by destroying that rabbit and create yourself, maintain yourself. So this is why I say the definition of good and the definition of evil are very simple. It's simply creation and destruction. However, when you take that into the world, it gets extremely complicated because there's usually a mixture of both in every situation. That's why morality is difficult. That's why it's not easy to figure out. But you can't.
You've tried to make it very simple in what you're saying, though.
What I'm saying is that, well, it is simple. It's simple. But
it's simple. Your morality is right and everybody else's is wrong. That is all I've been getting out of you all night.
Yes.
But see that
But see, if we
I'm honest
disagree,
now.
yeah, no, that's fine.
What
That's
what
fine.
is
No,
ridiculous
but
is when
listen.
someone enters
But
into
listen,
an argument thinking that their morality. So if I entered into this argument about morality, and I did not think that my morality was correct, it would be like, what the hell is the point of having this argument? Could I be wrong? Sure. But the people who come into an argument and say, well, no one's right, everyone's wrong.
No, that's not what
just
anyone
pure
said.
nihilism, and we
That's
never
not what
do.
no one said here. No one has said that everyone's
you're
wrong.
saying moral law is subjective. You're essentially saying
Yes,
there is no
not moral law, just morals. There's no such thing as a moral law.
There is such a thing as moral law.
In what
There's
way?
definitely a thing called moral law, and there's a book written about it.
What is it? Can you
The Bible.
define it succinctly?
The Bible.
The Bible. Okay. But I mean, if we don't believe that the Bible is
You can
the
be wrong. You can not believe in gravity and jump off a house.
well, there are people who don't believe in gravity, right? Obviously,
It's like when you said.
wrong, but
It's like when you said, "Well, if you now." The thing is, I don't think we should pledge allegiance and say one nation under God. But your argument for the reason why we shouldn't was that not all of us follow the same God. Well, the problem is that whether or not you follow him, that God, if he exists, which he does, by definition, is your God. You just aren't following him. That's fine.
so, but is that where this natural law that you talk about comes from? The moral law, the objective morals. Is that? I'm guessing that's where that's going to come from.
The natural law can come from simple observation. It will just eventually lead you to the Bible if you have a complete understanding of it.
Mm.
But now,
but
to see now,
observation will show it to you.
I would argue that my life has led me further away from the Bible. Like, I'm further away from that kind of thinking than I ever have been before, and it's based off the moral turmoil that goes on in the entire world, because morals are subjective.
You don't understand the Bible.
Oh, I understand it. I understand it because I
Oh,
have the ability to perceive
let's get back.
I mean, that's my understanding. That's the difference. How you perceive what the Bible is saying, how you interpret it versus how I interpret it, again, subjective.
Right.
What's
I mean,
the book
even
of Judges about?
But even Christians interpret the Bible differently from each other. That's why there's so many different flavors of it.
Yeah, most of them are wrong.
Well, I mean, but they would say the same thing about you, right?
They would say the exact same thing about you.
They probably wouldn't. They'd probably say what you're saying. Everyone has their own opinion, and everyone's right, and they would be wrong. I am one of the very few people who will say most people are wrong, and I am right. I mean,
I say that all the time, to be fair. So
you're
actually, so do I.
Most people today will say that everyone is right in their beliefs, and that is the only thing that cannot possibly be true.
No, I'm not saying that everyone is right. I'm saying I'm right.
There's no possible way that everyone's moral beliefs are equally valid.
No, I don't think that's true either. Yeah, I don't think that's true either.
Good. That's good.
But I want to let people live for themselves.
Right. I don't think that morals are objective, but I don't think that obviously if someone violates my morals, I say they're wrong, but they would say the same thing about me, even if we have completely different morals.
You're saying some people are wrong, but you can have more than one interpretation. More than one interpretation is right.
No, I'm not saying that more than one interpretation is right. Especially if we want to talk about the Bible, I don't think most interpretations are right. But when you talk about morality, it's complicated. That's why we have conversations like this to determine what is the best morality for the most people.
Well, there's nothing complicated in the definition of it. The only thing is complicated in the application. That's the only thing. But what moral law in and of itself is very simple.
There's a big difference between consensual morality and imposed morality.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Consent.
If you force me to believe what you believe, and you force it on me, then I'm not going to take it at the same value as you do.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that, but it's a lot better for you to try and convince someone that your morals are right rather than impose it by force, because human nature is to rebel. And so if you force that on me, then my first inclination is going to do the exact opposite.
If someone's about to commit murder or have an abortion, you should force them not to.
Well, I agree with the murder part, yeah. I agree that if you're committing murder, Yeah, if someone's about to commit murder, yes.
Abortion being murder, you should force them not to have an abortion.
What if I don't agree that it's murder?
Well, then you're wrong. That's fine. We can come to a consensus on that. You're
Well,
not.
see, I mean, I've been more and more pro-life.
I would say that you won't come to a consensus on that. If you did come to a consensus on that, we would have a consensus in this country, and we don't. So your idea that a consensus can be gathered, only 9 people can have a consensus that makes any difference on that.
There's 2 different situations. There's 2 different situations. There's a situation where you have a conversation to try to convince somebody, and I would call that peace. And then there's a situation where you force somebody in order to prevent more wrong, and I would call that war. Now, the problem is that when people who profess a certain morality, such as abortion is murder, if you say abortion is murder, and then your sister says, I'd like to have an abortion, and you don't force her not to have an abortion, then you are a liar. Because if you really thought it was murder, you would force her not to. So that's the problem is you are saying things that you believe and then not acting upon them. Now, if you don't believe abortion is murder, it wouldn't surprise me that you don't force it. But if you said abortion is murder, and then you go, clearly there is something going on in your mind that is not what's coming out of your mouth. And so that's why people are confused and they don't know truth.
Would your argument not also say that whether I do or don't believe it's murder, I have a moral obligation to stop that person?
Yes.
And that I disagree with.
Well, see, we're again going back to subjective morals, right? You're saying, well, we're again going back to subjective morals, right? Like you're saying, if you don't believe that abortion is murder, well, that's a moral decision. It's not immoral then to end that fetus's life to that person. Whereas to you, obviously, it would be, and to me as well. I'm more pro-life than I've ever been in the past now, but still, my point stands though about subjective morality.
An interesting way to look at this argument.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
A little bit different from this.
Your video's gone.
Is it gone?
You're good on my side.
I've still got you.
Let's take the 5th out of this. Let's take the 5th commandment out of this. Let's go back to the 10th.
Okay.
Now, let's not talk about murder. Let's talk about coveting, because that's something that could actually be subjective. Yes, we all agree that ending a life is wrong, but now let's talk about something that is more subjective so we can actually talk about subjective morals.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you stand on that?
Oh, wow. You cut out during the important part.
On coveting?
Yeah.
You have to understand that because I say what is right and what is wrong, and I can say it's very simple for me to say coveting is wrong, does not mean that I think I have the ability to always discern whether or not someone is doing that. And that's why it's a God who does it. It's a God.
I know that's why you fall back on the idea of argument, because you want to put a concrete thing down that nobody can argue with you with. So now I want to put you in a subjective state where you can be argued with.
It's not.
I think that coveting is
subjective.
I think coveting is not wrong. I think it drives the economy. If your neighbor gets a dildo that plays "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," you want to get one too.
Say that again.
I said, if your neighbor goes out and gets a vibrator that plays "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," you want one too.
The dumb tagline. What was the actual thing you said?
Coveting drives the economy.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
He's kind of got a
Put
point.
that map behind you, and I'm going to go out and get one.
You don't know what coveting means.
Coveting means wanting something that someone else has, right?
Well, hang on. Yeah, let me define it real quick.
Something. Now, if I see my neighbor's car and I want a car, that is not coveting. If I see my neighbor's car and I want his car, that specific car, not the same make and model somewhere else, that specific car, that's coveting, and that does not drive the economy at all.
He does. He's got you on the fine particular there. There's.
That's the definition.
I see where
I
he's
see
going.
that, yeah.
That's the definition of coveting. If it was desire would have been written down. Coveting only appears like that one word is used. Where else do they use coveting? You know,
coveting your neighbor's wife.
All the time.
There were 2 commandments about it. Yeah.
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 So they mean a very specific thing. They mean you want that specific thing. They don't mean you want a similar thing. Because the person who covets could go and get a 92 Lincoln Town car like his neighbor and be totally dissatisfied with it. And that will not drive the economy.
I covet my neighbor's wife because he beats the crap out of her and I can treat her better. Put that into your morality.
That's it's kind of like a gay person. Oftentimes, I've read books of psychologists
Is that like moral sinning?
Well, hang on. Let him make his point.
It is
Yeah,
it is moral sinning. A gay person, oftentimes people's real temptations are derived from good desires that they that have been twisted. So the good desire is to protect a woman. Most men who want to be with women, like, it seems to me that men
Everybody.
with women, they want a woman they can protect and love, and then they also really want sex, and there's two totally separate things. And that's why a man can please himself, you know what I mean? So like for instance, a gay person, what they are missing in their life oftentimes is a strong male role model, and their heart is broken over that. Problem is that they associate that with sex, and that's when it becomes corrupt. And it's sour grapes or whatever. You get it, and then right when you're on the path, I had this with the girlfriend that I lost my virginity to. Right when you're on the path to getting the thing you actually want, which is companionship, you stumble into sin, and then you're not satisfied. You're sitting there like, oh, we're just fucking each other. There's nothing to this. Does that answer your question?
I don't know. I missed most of that.
You're a good man for coveting your neighbor's wife in that situation. The problem is that you're sinning.
It's a sin.
As a good man. Yeah, and I'll come back to what I always come back. We all are deserving of hell. Our ways of solving good things are to sin.
Well, I mean, if your moral compass is absolutely correct, then you're not deserving of hell.
No, I'm deserving of hell. My moral compass is absolutely correct. That's how I know I'm deserving of hell.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a difference. To be fair to Nate, there is a difference between your moral compass and your moral actions or thoughts,
Yeah,
I suppose, in this situation. So if you know you're doing wrong, obviously, then your morals are telling you that you're doing wrong.
That's when your heart really breaks. That's when your heart really breaks, is when you realize that not only is the world totally fucked up, but if I was and I can see everything that's wrong with it, exactly what's wrong with it. Not only that, but if I was in charge of it, it would still be fucked up, and I would still know exactly how fucked up it was, and I would fuck it up too. Even though I knew exactly what to do right, I wouldn't do it. And that's when your heart really breaks, and that's when you just need, that's God. You need God at that point. That's when people get saved.
But, all right, so let's get back to...
I do not know with my connection tonight.
What's up?
I do not know what's going on with my bandwidth and my connection tonight.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. You trying to...
Gremlins.
You trying to stream something else on your computer there? You were about to what?
I said, I'm glad I fixed my audio because I was about to ditch.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm glad you didn't. So, yeah, let's get back to, objective morals, because I really want...
A little drunk.
What's that?
A little drunk, but go ahead.
A little drunk? No, that's all right. I encourage that. I can't speak forever, but I encourage that.
I spiked my beer.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So, yeah, back to, objective morals, because we've kind of...
Be right back. I'm going to go reset my router.
Yeah. That's probably a good idea.
Seeing as how the way that came across, yeah, we get you.
Yeah, you might want to do that.
Boot away, buddy. Boot away. Reboot.
You look frozen from my perspective.
He is frozen.
Ed, yeah, he just left, I think.
You've got a really good pose, though. It looks like you're supposed to be that way.
Right. Looks like a good thumbnail.
Yeah.
But oh, hey, roundtable decision. I saw you followed us earlier today. That's awesome. Welcome, man.
Let's go to the chat.
Okay, yeah.
About everything. I haven't been reading the chat.
Yeah, let's do chat. What does chat think? Do you guys think that morals are objective? Do you think they're subjective? If they're
Give us your
objective,
unfettered opinion. Does anybody want to just lash out emotionally? Go ahead.
that too, yeah. Yeah, we encourage that. Check and do whatever they want. There's only one moderator in there, and he's not gonna ban you for anything,
He's
really.
busy.
Yeah,
He's been busy hunting for
He's-
emojis.
Yeah, he's been busy emojiing all over
Cold
the
as
place.
ice bear.
They must
Yeah,
have
yeah,
been
cold as
hidden.
ice bear is here.
They must have been hidden right by his mic.
So on second thought, let's not go to Jet. It's just a silly place. It is a silly place. That's why we like it, though.
They're not even listening. Look at that.
No, they are. They can't help but listen.
Checkmate.
Especially when you have a smooth voice like this, you know.
I was talking
Can't
to
help
someone
but listen.
last night, and she was really struggling or whatever, and I was like, the thing about God that pisses me off is he's real lazy, and he's just lazy. He takes 1,000 years to do something that can be done in a day. And she's like, well, he built the whole world in 6 days or whatever. I said, yeah, he rushed it so he could take a nap.
That's funny.
Yeah. And then we were
like
talking about testicles. So
Nice. Doesn't seem very godlike, sir.
Yeah, isn't that wouldn't that qualify as mocking God and fall under the first commandment?
Probably. It was okay until I told you guys that.
Oh yeah. And now you're bragging. That's another sin. You can,
You know, I
Now I'm really fucked.
I'd like to consider myself somewhat of a nationalist, more patriot than nationalist, I think. But I don't care whether it's democracy. I don't care if it's moral values. I don't care if it's a specific religion as a whole. I don't care if it's racial. I don't care what the motivation is. Subjugating a people to impose your will.
Welcome back, Ed.
Let's see if that works any better.
I just don't.
It looks better.
There's nothing good about it. I mean, there's too much wrong, not enough right. There's too much wrong with it. There's too many different opinions. I mean, get a consensus. Get a consensus first before you can say your morals are right. That's what we have to go with. That's why we don't even. We shouldn't even be governing from a moral standpoint in our government. We should govern from a right or wrong, right? Things that infringe upon people's rights. That's what we protect. I don't know that it has to be rooted in morals, because when we start touching on the moral things, then we get into these arguments on things like abortion that can be handled at a state level at the worst, because I still don't believe it's something that should be somebody else's will should be imposed. But it's morals are too dicey, too questionable.
There's never been a country that existed, maybe one or two for short periods of time, but there's really never been a country that existed that was not either subjugated by somebody else or subjugated somebody else. It's not possible. And there's never been a person. And there's never been a person that existed that was not subjugated by somebody else. There's never been a free person.
So let me pose this question to you then, Nate.
Mm-hmm. Except for Craig.
If there is this right from a moral standpoint, this objective moral outlook,
mm-hmm.
after thousands and thousands and thousands of years, why is it not in play? Why is it not the standard by how we as humans live in the present day? I mean, there's been plenty of time to get it right. There's been plenty of time to spread it. Why is it not taking hold?
It was. The Americans were the best example of that. And particularly, during the World War II and World War I. We invaded Germany and subjugated Germany, occupied their country, took away their sovereignty, divided them in half, and because of their moral predicament. And Eisenhower said that when he was at the Nuremberg, where he said, no, you are guilty of a crime. It doesn't matter what the laws are. You've broken the moral law. and he killed Nazis. The Americans did that. They didn't do it perfectly, but they've done it better than any other country that ever did for a short period of time. Now that we are no longer a morally guided country, because we have two factions, one faction, and it's not Republicans or Democrats, it's not Christians or atheists. Most Christians and atheists fall into the faction of there's two factions. One believes that you should not impose your moral will on anybody. The other faction believes that evil is the way to go. And so the evil people impose their moral will on everybody, and the good people don't do shit. And that's where we're at right now. But it did happen. It definitely did happen.
But are you not advocating that the good people should start imposing their moral will?
Yes. Yep. I'm advocating.
Okay. So then, wouldn't
Does
that
not
turn
then
them
turn
evil?
them evil, right?
Wouldn't that make them evil?
Yeah.
Because they're
I think that's
imposing
a
their
false
moral
dichotomy anyway.
That's what I'm saying. It's not immoral to impose your moral will on other people. It's not necessarily immoral. It could be immoral, but it's not necessarily immoral.
So wait. The argument that I'm hearing is that it's moral
Good
for me
people
because
should
I'm
be-
right, but it's not moral for others if they're wrong. Is that
Say
kind of what
again.
you're saying? It seems like what you're saying is that it's moral for me to impose my morals on others because I'm right, but not for others to do it because they are morally incorrect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, basically. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm upset because, for most of my life, I've been atheist, agnostic, hedonistic, intellectual, nihilistic, those sorts of things. I've only recently come to this conclusion, I'd say probably in the last couple of months. And I'm pissed off because my elders, who have the morality that I do, have not imposed their moral will on other people. And so there's been a lot of bloodshed and rape because of that, because women and children are not being protected. I was a child who was not protected. Now I'm an adult, and I'm pissed off at the other adults that didn't do anything. So yes, the people who have correct morals should impose their morals on other people, and the people who have incorrect morals should not. I can guarantee you that the people who have incorrect morals will try to impose their will on other people. The only antidote to that is people having correct morals also doing it.
But a book written by men in the name of an unprovable God is not the right to impose that moral will.
You definitely aren't right just because you've read that book. You're not even right just because you understood that book. First of all, you have to have experienced the real world. So most of the people I argue with are people who do nothing but read the book and understand the book. Those are some of the worst people you'll ever meet. Those are the people who are responsible for the shit we're in. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's not those people. I went out and experienced the world, and then I read the book.
Right. So what makes you think then that your morals are the correct one as opposed to what anyone else might say? What has convinced you? Testing.
What you're advocating doesn't work. What I'm advocating works. Historically.
Well, hang on, because what do you think that I'm advocating? Because to be fair, you've misrepresented what we've been advocating for, in the past on this stream. So I'm just asking what you mean by what you.
You've misrepresented all three of us tonight.
Yeah, sure. Seems to me. Well, I think most of the time, because all three of you are so vastly different from each other, I think most of the time I'm describing one of you and not the other two, and so the other two feel misrepresented. But the one I'm talking about specifically today is the non-aggression pact of not forcing your will on other people. That's the one that doesn't work. Does not work. Impractical.
And
non-aggression pact, where the whole way
it's
of being a person.
To be fair, it's a non-aggression principle, is what I think you're referring to, and that's more of a guide than it is like some kind of
It's
I
a
don't know.
misleading guide.
Well, it's kind of more than like it is a more. It's more of a guide. It's more of I'm not going to initiate force unless someone's life is in danger, whether it be mine or someone near me.
It's a
Right.
terrible guide.
So there is a way
It leads to
to.
death. Leads to death.
Well, okay, yeah, it leads to death unless I'm near someone whose life is in danger. In which case, it leads to one person's death and not the death of many, like in a mass shooting scenario.
How much time do you have to make that decision? If
Probably a split second most of the time.
If you're not going to initiate force, and you both have a gun, the other guy shoots you first, and then you can know you can shoot him back.
No, that's not what the non-aggression principle says.
Okay.
And again, it's a guide, right? So no, it's if that person has a gun out, is brandishing the weapon, you have every right to shoot that person.
I would say a better guide is good and evil in understanding that. And you can start with creation and destruction. Not imposing your will on other people has no moral value. In fact, it's the sin Adam did. Eve screwed us all, and Adam didn't do shit to stop her. You don't do anything. You can't hold up your moral value to be not to do anything except in the worst case scenario. Fuck that. Do something now, right now. Because otherwise we're frogs in a slowly heating up pot.
So we cause destruction and impose evil in order to stop future evil? Because I mean that's what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah. Yep.
I believe God could have stopped it if he wanted to. He didn't
that's true.
he didn't want to impose his moral values on them. Punish them maybe.
No.
But
we were designed to have free will, not be alive to servitude like the angels.
Free will flies in the face of moral value. I mean,
that's
ultimately
definitely wrong because God did impose his moral values on them.
No, he imposed punishment. That's punishment. That's not imposing it. Imposing his moral values was saying, I'm taking this choice away from you to eat the apple, Adam, and I'm going to strike Eve down and make a new one who will not eat the apple when she's tempted. That's imposing his moral values. That's imposing.
Yeah, we're human beings. We're not robots.
Then it would have been better to punish people more because we're not willing to punish people anymore. So
I don't know. It sounds like totalitarianism to me.
Yeah, totalitarianism. That's exactly what it is.
Well, we punish lots of people based on right
and
wrong.
It's better to live in a moral dictatorship than immoral democracy.
Let me put this in a practical sense to you. Mm-hmm. If a socialist were to come in and try to impose what he considers to be a moral value on me in my home, he is going to get shot. Punished.
Yeah. Yep.
And I feel the same way about any moral ideal that I do not agree with. Because I may live and let live.
Yeah.
You live how you want to live over there, and I will live how I want to live over here.
Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't do anything to protect your neighbor if the socialist came to impose his moral values on your neighbor. Or would
That's not true.
Because if you are, then you're not following your rules.
If he asks for help, the socialist gets shot.
What if he didn't ask for help?
I mean, it's still, again, you're defending someone whose life is in danger. That does not violate the non-aggression principle.
And I would ask.
Because there is aggression happening.
And I would ask, hey, buddy, you want this guy here?
Well, you might not have time to ask, depending on what's going on, depending on the circumstance.
Oh, okay, then I shoot him in the kneecap.
That whole asking first and shooting later hasn't been working because they're just taking advantage of that. And they're slowly convincing people it's a good thing until you'll be the only one left. And then there will be no one to help you.
Hence, we go back to my idea of small government and no centralized power.
Mm-hmm.
Small government. Well, what you were talking about was transferring power to the states, which is still centralized power. In fact, it's closer to home, so it's more likely to get involved in your life.
It's also more likely to face the consequences of getting involved in someone's life.
like a 20
Unlike,
gauge,
unlike the federal government, which is far away
and has
Oh,
nukes.
and has
face
nukes.
consequences. They do it. They do it either way. They still face the consequences. Don't matter as much because they will face consequences. There's no one in federal government who lives a happy life.
So,
No, certainly not. I imagine not.
would you rather live
I'm
in
getting a little
North?
worn out, guys. Is it?
Huh?
I don't want to like bow out, because I'm losing an argument or something. So, like,
What's up?
you got to go to bed at some point. So, like 15
yeah.
minutes and then good. I just don't want to leave because it's like,
Well-
okay, you're losing. You're
Oh no.
No.
We're not going to do that to you. Yeah, we're not going to be like, oh yeah, victory. Woo. No, it's not like that. It's just a conversation. Yeah,
No,
I only do that to Robert.
yeah.
right.
15 minutes,
So
okay?
to a comment,
no
a
problem.
comment you made a moment ago, if the thought that a dictatorship is better than an amoral democracy, does that mean you would rather live in North Korea?
Well, I'm sure he imagines that that's immoral. I don't think that's a good.
But he said, but
Yeah, North Korea.
if it's better, you live in an amoral democracy right now. I mean, morals are, the spectrum has been blown wide open. So wouldn't you be better off living somewhere like North Korea or China?
I think a better question to ask would be, what would be your ideal government, like the setup for government? What would be your ideal government?
That's a great question. I'll preface it by saying it will be hell until I die and go to heaven. So any government's going to be hell. My ideal form of government would probably be an ineffectual representative republic with states who were willing to, or citizens who are willing to fight without being put into a federal army. That would probably be the best.
Sounds like libertarianism.
Yeah, that sounds like
earlier.
Right.
Because if we were a representative republic right now, our people wouldn't be willing to fight to defend ourselves. The reason why it's like when the Israelites got King Saul. They said, we need someone to fight our wars for us. Like, the reason why our country is failing is not because of our type of government. It's because of the morality of our people, and that's it. So I would rather live in, let me think of another time in history that I would rather live as far as government that was a dictatorship. Probably under Oliver Cromwell in England. That would be a better government than right now.
That's an interesting
You
answer.
guys know Oliver Cromwell?
Yeah. King killer.
Dictator.
Yeah.
He was a puritanical Christian dictator.
Yeah, he was.
So, Cold as Ice Bear
That would be a better time to live now.
made a comment in the chat. He said, each person hold themselves to strict morality on the basis of the knowledge of heaven and hell. And, I have to argue that, we can hold ourselves to moral standards without the idea of heaven and hell.
That's true.
People do it all day long.
You don't need heaven and hell.
I mean, but this idea, even the idea of God, we can live morally right lives without a belief in anything if we so choose. We're capable of that. And we can still be morally right where we don't break these natural moral laws that you perceive to be objective.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
Especially if we go on the premise that everybody's going to sin and should be sinning.
We all know what's right and wrong, and we're all capable of doing right all the time. None of us does.
See, I disagree with that because while we do know what right and wrong is, it's subjective, right? If you were born and raised without any morals somehow, you don't have any parents somehow, but you make it to adulthood, you don't have those morals instilled in you.
Yes, you do.
How?
It's written on your law, or on your heart.
How?
You know it by instinct. You know it's
How?
good.
So like what? Like
God
what
did it.
exactly?
Maybe
What
God-
exactly is? What exactly is so-called written on your heart? Like what exactly is it?
And if it was written on your heart, how can people like Kim Jong Un rise to power?
Oh, because people don't listen to it.
Right, but more.
There's other things written on your heart as well. Um, it's kind of like there's a version of bowling I think that the Scots play, where they roll a ball to knock over pins, right? But
Mhm.
the ball has a little flaw in it so that it never rolls straight, and
Mhm.
so the ball itself is round in its nature. It is clear that it is supposed to roll straight, and yet there's a flaw, and it never does. That's how it works.
But okay. So let me put it this way.
You have perfect
Wait,
law written on an imperfect heart.
right. So let me rephrase my question then. If morals are objective, can you name what good morals are?
Yeah, yeah. Do you want me to do it right now?
Yeah, that would be great.
What version do you want? Do you want me to give you the Ten Commandments? Do you want me to say what I said before again about
Well, no,
creation and destruction?
the objective morals that are
The
written on
Ten
your heart,
Commandments.
whatever those might be. The Ten
Ten
Commandments.
Commandments. Yeah.
Is that
Here's
what?
a question.
So
If
wait, so wait, so is it actually morally wrong to make a depiction of God? Because that's one of the Ten Commandments.
No, it's morally wrong to make an idol that you bow down and worship.
No. There's one that is specifically not to make graven images of God.
I'll read it to you. Um, You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth below, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parents, the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. So it's not about making it; it's about making it and bowing down to it.
Yeah, but the
You don't bow
Catholic
down.
the Catholic Church that I went to had a 30-foot crucifix with Jesus hanging on it, and we bowed down and
Yeah.
prayed to that thing all the dang time. And
Yep.
that's a depiction of God. That we knelt down and prayed to. I mean, in and of itself, is that not hypocrisy that the church is that
Oh yeah,
that
definitely.
Here I have
happens?
it. I have it right here. Thou shalt
I
not
think
make.
most of the people who went to your church are going to hell.
That's Catholicism.
Yeah, no, I have it
I
right
think
here
most of the
though.
people going to the Baptist church down the street are going to hell too. I mean, I hope not. Those people are actually kind of nice people.
Yeah,
But in Seattle,
so hang on.
Don't
So
we come
Nate,
to the point
Nate,
what makes you the judge?
the one I have
well,
right here.
ultimately, I don't send them to hell. I'm just guessing.
Right. So here I have it right here. I am the Lord, no other gods before me. No graven images or likenesses. Uh, is the third one. No, second one. Sorry. Yeah, it says, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image of God." Let me see. I'm looking at stupid Wikipedia. Let me get
You
the
have to
source.
read the whole. You have to read the whole thing because there's no punctuation in the original
Right.
text, so that period isn't actually there. It says, "You shall not make them. You shall not bow down to them."
But it's saying you should not make a graven image of God.
Yeah,
You shall not
Nathaniel's
make
talking
yourself.
about the first, and John is talking about the second.
Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about a different one?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? Can you maybe give me the verse?
Let me look it up
It's the
again.
second commandment.
Yeah.
I'm reading the second commandment. It doesn't say that, so you must be somewhere else.
It depends on what version of the Bible I think that you're
Yeah,
reading.
that's the thing. It gets complicated as far as like versions and everything. But read me the thing you're looking at, and I'm sure.
See, under the Philonic division used by Hellenistic Jews and Protestants.
Because ultimately, Jesus never said make a statue of Jesus.
Well, yeah.
You really shouldn't be making a statue of Jesus. And you definitely shouldn't be bowing down to it.
Let's see, terminology, Ten Commandments.
That doesn't mean you're not a Christian. Like
It's actually the
It also came down
yeah.
2,000 years before Jesus was born.
Wow.
well, Jesus is God. So when he said,
Okay, here we
when he
go.
said-
I have Exodus 4-6. It says.
Exodus 4 to yeah, that's what I just read.
Right, so here it says, "You shall not make for yourself." Oh shit, a carved image or any likeness of. Oh, okay, yeah, that is what you just read.
Can you see what I'm reading? Yeah. So what's
Yeah,
wrong with that?
showing steadfast. Okay, no. I'm trying to find the one exactly that says,
Is
"You
it?
should
Is
not
it?
make a graven
It
image
seems
of
to
the
me. So
Lord."
the question you said was that basically, is it a sin for people to make
Right?
an image?
What?
Make an
No.
image.
Is it
What
morally
was the action?
wrong? Is it morally wrong to make an image of God? And that was, or so even so, is it morally wrong to make an image of an idol and bow down to worship it?
Yeah, yeah, it's morally wrong.
Why is that morally wrong? Other than that, it says it in the Bible.
Well, because if you create something with your hands, and then make that thing the ruler over you, like for instance, you know, there are some people who take iPhones very seriously, like that's their commitment in life is iPhones. There are other people who take football very seriously. Well,
Hmm.
ultimately, football was invented. It's like what you said. If the Bible was written by men, and it's written by men. So a man, well, a large group of men over a couple thousand years sat down and wrote it. That means you shouldn't worship it. You shouldn't worship anything created by men.
But if we believe that God was created by man, then
You're
you shouldn't
wrong.
worship God. But
You're
see,
wrong.
how can you
Was
prove that
Jesus was
objectively?
Jesus created by men? Like was I created by men?
You were created by a man and a woman.
Okay, how did they do it?
They
Sex.
had sex.
They had sex. Okay, so
Hmm.
then the genetic material came together,
Hmm.
and so then they got to choose my eye color. They had a selection box. They chose blue. They had another selection box. My point is they didn't have very much control over that. They could initiate sex, but you can talk to any couple having trouble having a baby and realize how little control they actually have over the creation process.
Okay, that still makes it's natural though, as opposed
They are not
to.
creating it. They are not. A human being is not created by another human being in the same sense as like a painting or
No,
statue is.
right? Yeah, it's not like an artistic expression,
Yeah, you're
but they're
shooting.
still
You're
creating
shooting.
something.
You're
It's
shooting
literally
cum.
called procreation. So, I mean,
Right.
you're
It's the act.
creating life when you do that.
Yeah, it's
Well,
down.
pro means before. Pro means before. Creation means creation. So they're doing the act before creation. The actual
Hmm.
creation is not up to them.
Am I
That's
gone?
why it says. That's why it says we have the image of God. We
No
are.
image, but we've got your audio at.
Oh.
We are the image of God. A statue of me would not be the same thing as me.
Well,
Now
no,
you
of
also
course not.
shouldn't bow down to any man except for Christ.
I mean, so again, but how can you prove this more objectively that it's immoral to do that?
Well, through a long time and many points similar to the ones I'm making right now. But I've
I have
definitely made a lot of points to prove it. It's just
I,
I have
making
a
I
it.
don't. I
question.
don't think you have because they're all subjective, right? They're all
Yes,
a lot of anecdotal, and there's a lot of the Bible says.
right. I
And
mean,
so, to someone who doesn't accept the Bible as true, that's not going to hold a lot of water
Well,
with
you're the
that
one
person.
who quoted. You're the one who quoted the Bible.
Right. Well, because I'm trying to find common ground and something
Yeah,
that we can,
and that's great. But
yeah.
because
I'll
this is
start.
the history book that people refer to when they're talking about a belief in God.
I'm glad you did, but I always will come to you wherever you're at, and I will answer you as honestly as I can based off of what you said. Most
Hmm.
of what Robert said, most of what Robert has ever said to me, I agreed with and said was true. It was and most of what the average Christian says to me on a regular basis, I disagree with and fight them more than I'm fighting you guys.
But
Hmm.
would you not say that your moral values are rooted in biblical text?
Um, I would not say that. No, my yeah, I actually this is something you probably don't know about me, but I want to say this in such a way. I was talking about with the preachers yesterday, and they were surprised. They said no one, it's very weird for that to happen to somebody. But basically, I believed that there was no such thing as heaven and hell, that we died and we went to oblivion, and that was it. And then, and I had never read the Bible, and didn't read the Bible at all. And then I asked God to help me live a significant life, and then I continued to not read the Bible, and I continued to believe that nothing mattered besides this life for 2 years. And so my belief is actually not rooted in the Bible or in a belief in heaven and hell. It's rooted in doing good things and walking with God and seeing what happens. That's where they came from. It actually came from experimentation, more from science than anything else. Experimentation.
So
that's where they got rooted. That's why I say natural law. I tested these things out, and
that works for you, right? That works for you.
And I found that they were true. Yeah,
and
they were true.
Okay, they're true to you, but that doesn't mean it's true for me, right? Or works for me. That can't, you can't impose that on me and say that's how the only way I can live my life right is to do it the way you say it should be done.
That was the whole story.
Well,
then I studied history, and then I actually went on a for about 7 years. I would have 3 conversations with people every day, and one of those conversations I would connect with them, and then basically the rule was I would try to help them with something and try to get them to help me with something, essentially. And so the point is that I have thousands and thousands of people, at least 7,000 people that I've talked to that I've gotten to know, like, their life story. And so that was one way I tested it. And then also my study in history, which taught me that these things were true. So it was width and depth. These things were true across the range of human experience, and these things were true across the dates of human existence. That's why I think they apply to you.
So wait, no, it seems
I'm
like
convinced at this point.
So you think they apply to me, but neither one of us know. But neither one of us know.
Right. It seems like what you're saying is that you know how to live Robert's life better than Robert does, or anyone in general. But we're using that example, at the moment.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying.
But if your morals are objective and correct, then he's not following those exact morals.
I actually never said I should. I specifically said I morally should not impose my will on Robert.
Mm-hmm.
What I was actually advocating was Robert imposing his moral will on other people who don't know any better, which is different.
But could that not be this?
Robert's an adult and a good person.
Can that not apply to you as well? I mean,
yeah, by the transitive property.
Right. Do you not see that you're a good person, or that you're, or an adult?
Oh yeah. No. So I morally should impose my will on other people, just not Robert. Robert's a good person, and he's got to take care. He's not a child.
But who makes him? But who decides whether he's a good person or not?
God.
So God has told you that Robert's a good person, or is that a judgment that you've made on your own based on observation?
Of those two options, I would say.
I mean, if there's another option,
it's well, the second half of what you said is true. Yeah, through observation.
Mm-hmm. It's a moral judgment that you've made based on.
I have been led to believe that. Now, I would call that God speaking to me.
Okay, I mean, I can't really something I can really do with that because I can't.
Can't anybody could make that argument, couldn't they?
But you don't even have to have
Most
of
them would be wrong. That's fine.
But that that doesn't.
But if you think someone's a good person, right?
A 40-year-old father should say. A 40-year-old father could say, "I'm going to carry a gun and drive this car," and a 5-year-old son could say, "I'm going to carry a gun and drive this car," and they would both be saying the same thing. They're both capable of saying the same thing. One of them is right, the other one's wrong, and they said the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
that make sense?
Why can't they both be right?
The 5-year-old is not right.
You've never been to Wisconsin.
That's funny.
5-year-old's not morally right.
But see, the ultimate
Well, I
thing
mean,
here is
and
we're
in
not,
some people's eyes, the father is not morally right for carrying a gun. In some people's eyes, that is completely immoral to even be around a gun,
The father is
whether
morally
you're
right
adult or not.
for doing that.
No. I'm saying that other people would say that the father is morally incorrect for even being around a gun or owning a gun.
And there are other people that would say it's morally incorrect for anybody to drive a car.
See, the right way to do it is the evil people and the good people say the same thing, and then what ends up actually objectively happening. It's kind of like have you guys ever heard the old riddle of you come to a crossroads and one brother always lies, one brother always tells the truth, and so you ask the liar, right? It's the same thing. So
well, no, yeah, you're supposed to say what would the other one say? Yeah.
If evil people are allowed to impose their morality on other people, and good people, I've got 10% better, and good people are allowed to impose their will on other people, then the good people will win. If no one is, then no one wins. If only the evil people are, then the evil people win, and that's the only way the evil people can win. So, and that's what's happening right now. The good people are not imposing their will on other people, and the evil people are. The evil people always will be. There's no way to persuade them not to, because they are evil. They want to do that.
But what about those of us who think it's evil to impose your moral value, whether you feel you're in the right or the wrong?
Well, what I would say is you're wrong, and you will find that leads to death and destruction, and that's the root of our problem today.
Right, but who
determines?
Who determines whether he's right or not?
If you act it out, the result will be hell. That's how you figure it out. It's not you. It's like, how do you determine gravity? Jump off.
So we don't know until after we kick off.
Yeah, so you can look at what other people did and
okay. Yeah, here's a good question from the chat. How do you feel about the EU, Nate?
How do I feel about it? I think it's disgusting. I think it's a terrible thing. I think it's a great example of what evil people do, which is impose their will on other people.
But you just said imposing your will on other people is right.
Yeah, if you're a good person.
Well, I mean, if other people see you as evil, do they not?
That's fine.
See, and there it is.
Yes,
that's the talk of a dictator, a megalomaniac, who make their own determination about the right and wrong of everything else that everybody else does.
Yep.
You can't have that opinion and expect that everyone else is just going to fall in line because you simply say, I'm right, you're wrong, might is right. So you got to come in swinging a big stick and use violence to change those minds. And how in God's name, sir, would that be right?
Well, and this will be okay. So I'm going to answer this question, and I'm going to let you guys respond, and then I'm going to go for my phone.
Right. Yeah, no problem.
So the first thing would be dictators, let's see. You said that is the words of a megalomaniacal dictator. Yes, the words of a megalomaniacal dictator and the words of God are the same words. They both say, you worship me, it is the best thing for you, and follow what I say. They sound the same. That's the trouble, is discerning them is not just based on what they say, because they say the same things. Satan says, I'm the only God, follow me. God says, I'm the only God, follow me. One leads to life, the other one leads to raping and pillaging, essentially. And then the other thing you said is, how can I expect people to fall in line? I don't expect people to fall in line. What I'm trying to accomplish right now is stating the belief that everybody is afraid to state or is rejecting, and then so that hopefully some other people stop feeling bad because they're put in a position of leadership because they're a good, capable person, and they don't feel um, morally okay with making other people follow their will. They should do that. Me in my life, how do I do that without violence? My brother was in a situation where he had nowhere to live. He was being kicked out. No one was providing for him. So I offered him provision. He came into my household, and the understanding was you will follow my moral laws, which there have been hardly any. So it's kind of a moot point because my struggle is actually I'm more passive. So I'm saying the opposite of I'm trying to teach myself how to act better. But that's how you do it. You don't do it. It's not realistic to say I'm going to be in any kind of position tomorrow to go and impose my moral will on different countries. If you believe these things, then you go and see your neighbors who are the people physically next to you, and you start acting out that way. And you say, okay, well, Rick, who I see every day, is an adult and is independent and is a good person, so this doesn't apply to Matt. And then oh, there's nobody. And then oh, well, no one's reaching out to help my brother, and I don't want to because he's very difficult to deal with and he can't take care of himself. He hasn't been able to establish himself very well, but he's a great person. He's great to be around and all that. I'm not saying he's a bad person. And so I overrid my desire to just live my own life and stepped out and provide for somebody else, knowing that it would go poorly and knowing I would have to do things that I wouldn't have to do. And then now I have to learn how to impose moral value in other people so that we don't both fail. So he doesn't go out into the small rural town, tell everybody he's bisexual and these things and that things. So now everyone turns on us and no one wants to talk to us. Right?
So it's about social pressure. It's about how you're seen. It's about how you're
Sometimes,
judged by others when only one person or one entity is supposed to have the right to judge any of us.
Yeah, those people are evil. It's about how to deal with evil people. Sorry, you say things. I'm not. I already gotta go, so I'm not going to try to get the last word.
Yeah.
It's about how to deal with evil people.
No. If you're about to leave, you can have the last word. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you guys think about that?
I think that's just being. I mean, other than the imposing morals. I think obviously, if he's living in your household, then you have every right to say, oh well, you need to do your own dishes, or take your shoes off before you step into the house. Whatever rules you might have are different than imposing like morals on him, saying you must think this way, you must hold these opinions in order to live here.
Here's an example where I'm telling him how to think. My oldest brother has decided to change his name legally and to go through hormone treatment to become a girl. I call him by his name, John, and I refer to him as he because that's what he is. Because your body and your gender are two separate things. Just changing your body doesn't change your gender, which is actually what transsexuals say, and then they act the opposite, which is weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about it. So I'm telling him, hey, you have to call John a boy if you're out in public, because if these people find out the drama of our family, there's a chance that we will fail in this area. And that's an evil thing that would cause, but you have to deal with it practically. So, and he's like, well, John's a girl or whatever. And I'm like, fine, then don't talk about him. Don't talk about him. And don't correct me every time I say it. So, and maybe I just need to tell him how to think. But that's an example. That's probably.
I mean, yeah. So we're gonna get into the cyclical thing about, what gives you, the right to tell him how to think or how to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference, obviously, between him living in your house and him following certain rules, or you telling him how he must think and act in public, especially.
Because he's a child.
Is he? Is he older? Yeah. I thought you said he was older than.
Most people are children. Yeah, he's older than me. You become an adult when you put away childish things. So.
I don't know. I disagree with that, but I know you have to go. So any final words you want to, give?
Hey, it's been
Go
great
ahead.
spending time with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was good to meet you.
Yeah, we appreciate you being on.
You too.
Yeah, always. You're welcome back anytime. Still, like no hard feelings or anything like
Yeah.
that. We just disagree. That's it.
Well, I'd be worried about getting you guys mad. I kind of
No,
like
not at all.
I have this instinct of like a massage therapist where you're like, oh, that's where it hurts. We're gonna press in there, and sometimes people don't like that.
you have to try really hard to offend me. So
Good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will test that.
when
Fine,
it's,
go ahead.
when
I
it's all
challenge you.
said and done, this is what makes America a little bit different
Right.
than the rest of the world, is the ability to have these differing viewpoints,
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully one day we find solutions. But having said that, I do want to shout out Nate and Ed. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight and shooting the shit with us. It's been a lot of fun. Folks out in the chat audience, man, you guys have been great. I know we haven't been jumping into that chat and catching everything you said. I've been trying to keep up with some of it.
Yeah, we've been reading it for sure.
Be it known, you are just as crazy as the rest of us. So, welcome to the madness that is the world of today. And if you liked what you're hearing, please hit the like button and let people know that there's something worth listening to here every once in a while, or at least just something to laugh at when you're kind of bored and got nothing else to do.
Hey, how you doing, buddy? What's up? Are you okay?
Yeah.
I love you. What's up?
So, having said that, we're going to peace out of here. John, they can find us a couple of places. Is that correct?
That's right. You can find us on Twitter at the Gin Gap P, and you can find us on our Discord server down below, right here in the description.
Right
Join it
there,
up.
right there.
Yeah.
And we're going to be running again on Friday night around 8:30. When's the next time somebody can expect something from you, Edgar? What you got? You got anything out there floating in the wind?
Well, you can always come and find me over on Twitter. That is at Ed's Blog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I. You can find me on YouTube. The channel is J Edgar, and it's marked by a blue spiraled globe. And I will have my weekly audio podcast coming out tomorrow morning, featuring Carly Krogman from the blog Dakota Charlie. That will be on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And I did just post the audio of my appearance on Call Me Ignorant as well. That just came up today, so go and check it out there.
Sweet. Nate, anywhere we can find you at?
A YouTube channel. I mean, like, people get on there and sometimes like some people got my phone number and my email and stuff like that. I'm really easy to get a hold of. But I put out one video every day at least, and usually about 15 minutes, and then I'm on a whole bunch of other videos talking with other people. And so if you just go to one of my videos, if you want to hear me talk about things that aren't, because I just read the Bible every day, so I do a Bible study. If you want to hear me talk, like debate or converse with people, which is much more interesting, then put a comment on one of my videos to send me a message or something, and I'll link you to other people's channels, because I don't typically put those up on my channel.
Sweet. All right, folks, we're going to get the heck out of here. You guys have yourselves a great night. Thanks for making the show great tonight, and we are out of here. Peace.
See you guys.